We are shooting at Anchor Point Studio with the best photographers and videographers I've ever met. You may think that they're the models because of their looks, but no, they're not the models. They are the photographers and videographers, and I had so much fun shooting with them. You should go check them out. Anchor Point Studios. Hi, my name is Carla. I go by Art of Bodybending, and I'm basically an all-around performing artist and storyteller. I am a singer-songwriter. My heart is accelerating, watching what your fingers do. I am a contortionist, fine art model, hence my name. I'm a pole instructor, an aerialist. I do theater and film. I host events, and I write stuff. And when I'm not doing that, I used to be a preschool teacher, and now I sell food and bread at an online restaurant.
What is fine art modeling?
Fine art modeling is modeling for a concept. So obviously, fine art modeling is for fine art photography, and with fine art photography, it's more than just the subject of a photo. There's always a narrative or a concept or a feeling that it's trying to evoke. So it runs deeper than what you see, and it's worth a lot more than 1,000 words. There can be meanings within meanings in that, one photo, or that photo could symbolize something. So that's what fine art modeling is. Like, there's a huge difference between a boudoir nude and a fine art nude, because a boudoir, it could just depict a woman and like how beautiful that woman is, and it can end at that. But with fine art, you're definitely going beyond just the woman in that photo, and really it really motivates you to look beyond what you see. So that's what I do for modeling.
You mentioned performance art. What is performance art and what exactly do you do?
Well, performance art, there's very little literature about it, but in recent conversations that I've had with my friends, performance art, they say, is the highest form of art because it goes beyond the structure of art. Because when there's music, when there's dance, when there's theater, there's always a defining boundary that classifies it as such. But performance art, it's not something that can be classified, and performance art is highly experimental. You are telling a story, you are performing something, showing the audience something that has not really been done before. And you're breaking the rules basically. It's knowing art well enough to be able to create your own methodology or your own unique way of depicting something, or I wouldn't say forcing, but provoking your audience by unsettling them with something that they didn't expect. So that's performance art, and that's what I've been doing in the past 5 years. There's one performance art that I did. It was called Execution of Matahari, and that showed in Fringe Manila Festival. That was in 2019. And it was a mix of theater and dance and symbolism. I was a woman with the audience members and fellow actors interacting with me through an improv setting. And it first turned out as good. People were admiring the way that I danced, the way that I moved with them. And I had my co-performers start whispering things about me to the audience. So that's another, something that made it different from theater, because the fourth wall was completely broken between the performers and the audience. The performers started telling them that, hey, she's such a slut, she's such a bitch, she's such a whore. These things that she did, they're not right. And it, the vibe of the crowd slowly turned from admiration to anger. And my co-performers responded to that anger, and instead of being very affectionate towards me, admire me, they started hurting me, they started being violent, and this was legitimate violence. Like, I actually was slapped, my hair was pulled, I was dragged on the floor until they all decided to execute me. And they covered me in a shroud with the words bitch, slut, whore, pok pok, puta. And what I wanted to convey with that performance art is how words really shape how women are treated or mistreated in society. So it's an experiment that actually ended up the way that I wanted it to end up. And it really leaves you thinking long after the performance about life, how you interact with others. So that's how intense performance art is, and it takes a lot of sacrifice. It's completely outside of the economy because it's so unusual, it's so untested that it's not something that can be commercialized as compared to photography or music that you can sell. So it really is very special, and it's something that you can always exceed the limits of. There's always something new to learn, something new to do. The beauty of performance art.
You mentioned Fringe Manila, avant-garde. Can you elaborate more on
These words? Well, Fringe Manila is an arts festival that is named as such because it is in the fringes of society. It's for the artists on the fringe, the artists that really don't belong anywhere, and the artists that don't get the kind of opportunities that they need to grow their art. And it's this beautiful festival that provides publicity, provides venues for these artists that have something very new to offer to the world. It happens every February, and it's very interactive. There's usually simultaneous events happening in the same time with the venues being very close together. So audience members can just hop from venue to venue, and when some people are done with their shows in one venue, they always support their friends. It's so beautiful. A lot of these acts are avant-garde, and avant-garde is a French word for advance-garde. And it's for the artists who have the courage to break ground, to go to the road that had not been ventured upon yet, and experiment so they can offer something new or create something new. And usually avant-garde is something that is not avant-garde anymore with the passage of time, because once one artist has introduced that into the culture, it grows and it grows, and that's how art grows.
what disciplines in performance art did you take, and which ones did you like the most, and which ones did you have to practice more? For example, you mentioned you do various performance arts, right?
Yeah.
You do pole, you do yoga.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so which of those did you have to give more importance first?
Oh, well, definitely music was my first ever love, and I really never imagined that I'd ever be a model or a dancer. But I had parents who were really against art. So even though I really wanted to take piano lessons and ballet lessons and be this very conservative, sophisticated ballerina pianist, it never happened because my parents did everything they could for me not to realize that dream. And when I was 14, piano was the very first thing that I fought for, because I wanted it so bad that even though I was an honor student following what my parents wanted, it's something that I would escape from school, cut class to do. I would sneak out of school so I could go to the mall across my school, and that's where I would take piano lessons. I didn't eat lunch for the entire school year, so I could save up enough money to take piano lessons. But sooner or later, my parents found out what I was doing. Like, the school caught me sneaking out, and when that happened, they took away my ATM card. So piano was completely out of the question. And what happened after that was things are a lot worse, you know, rather than just my parents not letting me take piano lessons. Like things were really, really bad at home. So I ended up having to leave home because that was the safest option for a 14-year-old kid, you know. But fortunately, I found my grandparents. They decided to take me in, and they took they let me take piano lessons at our neighbor's house. I had the worst piano teacher ever because she would stay with me for 15 minutes, and for the rest of the 2 hours that I paid for, she'd just leave me alone to practice. After living with my grandparents, I became self-supporting, so the piano lessons, yeah, it never pushed through. Then all of a sudden, I find myself being offered modeling gigs, dancing gigs, things that I never thought I would be good at, but I ended up, you know, I ended up excelling in those things, and it did build a career for me. So I decided to take on all of those. But of course, I really had to build myself to the point where I had enough finances to do music, and it did happen eventually. But the piano thing still hasn't happened because that's incredibly difficult to learn, especially when you're already an adult. Like it's funny because I learned how to dance at 20 years old when I was offered dancing gigs, and I started modeling out of nowhere. I think like acting, it's very natural in my personality. I think that's something I was born to do. So I was also part of theater plays and films, and writing is also something very natural. So it's funny how all of these disciplines that I never, you know, really had an idea of pursuing, I just ended up learning and making a career out of on the fly. But music, which I love the most, it's something that I'm a lot more nervous about since it's so important to me. It's really the only thing I've ever wanted, and it's different in the sense that you really have to learn a lot. Music's a lot like math. It's very technical. So that's what I'm really hoping to get into more and finally find my way back to the piano after, you know, once I do have a return of investment from all of my other art forms that I started doing.
When would you say you started your career, and can you explain or tell the story of what happened for that? When you could actually say that your body bending.
That's always who I was, but it was never something that I could have actualized in my childhood because I had these very restrictive parents who really, you know, did everything in their power for me not to be myself. And it was after running away from home and being with my grandparents that I started to be able to be myself more. But then my grandparents gave me back to my parents because they're very conservative. They're like, you have no right to take our child away from us. So my entire teenage life became a long-ass goose chase of me running away, my parents kidnapping me, taking me back, running away, my parents finding me again. You know, there was this point where my parents had this idea of locking me up at a convent, which was, it's ridiculous. But eventually I was able to, when I was 17, that's the time that I ran away and was able to find a place, was able to support myself a bit. Of course, I had to work first. I had to work to support myself, so it was a very, very long time of survival until I was able to save enough funds to take my first dance class. And that was when I was 20, because I was invited to join an event, and I said, I'm not a dancer. And they're like, you can be a dancer, just take some classes and we'll pay you. So that's when it started. And then I just really got into that thing of dancing, and I'm just naturally flexible. It's so funny because like I've never taken a dance class, but I was able to do a split. I was able to do a back bend. So in a sense, I was born bodybending, Carla, and it was just you know, it was really just the passage of my life, me being open, learning so many things. Bodybending really isn't just about being flexible. It's about being able to convey a story as well. So it's not just dance. It's also abstract art. It's also cultural, understanding these issues in the world, understanding people. It's very psychological as well. And it's the philosophy of stretching beyond the limits of what society says humans are, stretching beyond what you think the body can do so you can break new ground, do something new to share with the world.
Are you single or are you single? But how does this affect you? How does your line of work or career affect your relationships, whether intimately or as friends with other people?
I'm an NVSB. I really am. Why is that a no-no? Our photographer is laughing so hard at me because I'm an NVSB.
National Bookstore, Bulacan. That's why I was laughing.
I was a very sheltered child. My parents ensured me a good education, a good life where I was never hungry, but above all that, they have assured that I would never have a boyfriend for as long as I lived. Yeah, I was from an all-girls school and never akong nakalabas anywhere except church. So kahit tumakas na ako ng bahay, kahit mag-isa na ako, I was still just shy as fuck and naive as fuck about boys. So it was very easy for boys to play around with me, which is what they did. It's so funny because parents, whatever you fear the most will happen. That's exactly what's gonna happen. And my parents were so afraid that boys would play around with me that they kept me so sheltered that I had no knowledge of how to take care of myself at all. So, I became so suppressed. I just had to get out into the world. And what happens when you go out into the world with no knowledge? Boys play with you. So, yeah. I'm really weird, and a lot of my art is highly nude. I'm not afraid to do sexual concepts, even though hardly, not even 20% of my concepts are sexual at all. But of course, when a man sees a naked body, he only thinks one thing. And really, I've spent my entire teenage life and early 20s stereotyped by guys as this girl that you can just play around with and throw away when you're done because she's not a real girl, she's just a slut. And I never knew this. It's so funny because guys had this idea of me that I'm like that, but the truth is I'm somebody who was so incredibly naive, an incredible hopeless romantic. I'm very traditional and very conservative. So it was this discrepancy. It's guys thinking that I'm this girl who just likes to play around, and I'm the one thinking that this is love. So it always ends up bad. They always treat me casually. I'm always very confused, and they always leave me behind broken, and I always end up preparing myself. So yeah, I don't think I'm the kind of girl in society that a guy would see as girlfriend material. And so that's one thing. And because of the things that I do that I'm very public about, which is not normal, but it's not something that I would change because it's better to be genuine. I think, yeah, that's really what I'd like to see. So that's how I'd like to live my life. And so it has affected my life, my life and my line of work in the sense that I have wasted a lot for guys who did not give a fuck about me. So that was the negative side of it. But the positive side of it was I got myself into such horrible situations that these situations were something that you can just make great art out of. So it's like when people throw shit at you, you use it as fertilizer to make beautiful flowers, and that's exactly what I did. It takes a lot of pain to reach this point of comprehension where you can really understand people and make very interesting symbolic art, and that is exactly what I did. So thank you, boys.
Do you have a day job, and how does your career in fashion affect this? To do it?
Definitely. The only way I was able to pursue my art is by getting a day job to pay for everything I needed to learn and to do. My first ever job for 4 years was being a preschool teacher while doing nude art and pole dancing at night. And it's really hard for me to believe that my photographer is not the model because I'm sitting here still and he's dancing behind the camera and he looks great. He's body bending Brent, muscle bending Brent. Why always doing a back bend? Yeah. For me, there's nothing like an alter ego when it comes to me teaching kids by day and doing art at night because it's the same personality of being very open to life and being very innocent, just thinking everything is good and interesting and engaging with life. I think the way that I do my nude art and my weird performance art is very childlike. And the way that I teach in preschool is also very childlike. That's why I get along well with kids. It was great. I loved my job, but I kind of hated my coworkers because they liked stalking me on Facebook and they liked making chismes about me to my principal. There was a point where my nude photos reached my principal and my principal was like, you better delete those photos and apologize to all the parents. What if this comes out? And I was really just like, goodbye. So I would really love to come back to teaching one day because that's really, I feel like that's my vocation. I love teaching, but I don't think the world is at an appropriate setup for me. So I guess I'm gonna have to wait. And while I'm waiting, I can do my art full time, more time to do art. And right now, my day job is I do sales at a restaurant. After preschool teaching, I had a full-time job in theater, but then COVID happened. And then after that, I've had 4 jobs in 2020. The first one was still theater before COVID happened. The second one was I was an erotica writer for a sex toy website, and that was really fun. Yeah, I had to make different stories about different kinds of fetishes. But the one where I had to make a policeman fetish was definitely not fun. It was disgusting. After that, I did subtitling for Netflix, and then after that, I sell paella and lechon and bread. Yeah, so yeah, you have to be a chameleon if you're an artist because you're not really cut out to be in a day job. But whatever opportunity you find that feeds you and gives you the money you need to invest in your art, that's what you go to.
Do you think the world is ready for your kind of art, or is it just the Philippines that you feel like isn't ready or progressive?
Well, you can't be racist, but it's not really a matter of nationality or what country you're from. It's a matter of culture. You'll definitely find people in the States that would want to burn me at the stake, and you would definitely find people in the Philippines that love my art and support my art. So I think it's a lack of knowledge because a lot of the concepts that I work with are things that people are uncomfortable with talking about. It's not that they think it's bad, but it's just that they don't know enough about it, and people really fear what they don't know. So when I really just push forward very boldly stuff that they're very afraid to think about, very afraid to discuss, it creates a defensive reaction in them, and that's why I get trolls, I get haters, or people who like you to make chismes. And it's something that I would never want to take personally because it's just something that I feel like they don't know enough about. So my mission has always been to share knowledge and to share education in any way I could about these topics, unearth them. That's why I'm being very bold about telling the story of those topics. Because I think when people see that, hey, somebody can do it, and hey, she's not dead yet, as long as I survive and as long as I keep pushing to tell these stories, I'm pretty sure that there will be many people who will follow suit, or at least it destroys the stigma. If people have seen it, they won't be as afraid of it anymore, or if they discuss it, even though it's a very negative discussion that judges me, that's okay. At least people are talking about it. Talking about it really opens the door to more knowledge, more discussion, more introspecting, and it's all good. It's all good. Bodybending was a name I made up because I loved Avatar, The Last Airbender. And I'm from the Fire Nation. What bender are you? Airbender, of course. Earthbender. Waterbender? Waterbender?
Milk tea bender.
Milk tea bender. Milk tea vendor. And I love the idea of how, as a person, you call yourself a bender because you have full control over this element. And the element that I have full control of is my body. My body and my mind. And body bending is not just movement, it's also the philosophy of moving yourself as a human person, moving yourself in a way that goes beyond people's normal control of it. And it's really my mission to understand my body, my human body, and understand humans, so I can break past these limits or break past our current knowledge of what humans are, what they're supposed to do, who they're supposed to be, what they're capable of, and show a different side. And I'm not the only bodybender. That's why I don't call myself, I am not the bodybending, everybody's a bodybender because everybody has their own way of, it's all right, we don't need to cut it. Somebody's drinking milk tea at the back and you hear the plastic, but that's all right. Why don't you sound that plastic off for us? Go ahead. ASMR. Everybody's a bodybender in their own way because they can all do something unique with their bodies that goes beyond people's knowledge of what you can do. Everybody has that hidden side of themselves that, okay, they have this special way of thinking or way of acting, and they may not show it to the world, or they may not realize that it has the potential for creating something new, but everybody has it. Everybody's a bodybender, and I'm art of bodybending because I show you guys the art of how I bodybend, literally through art, through my photos, through my performances, and I do this because I really believe that that's what everybody can do. And if everybody does show the way that they bend their bodies and their minds, the world would be a much more interesting place.